Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today we have Alex Velazquez, who is a ex-software engineer at various companies like Google, Microsoft, and IBM, right? Yeah. Please welcome Alex Velazquez, everybody. Give a round of applause.
So if you don't already know me, my name is Alex Velazquez. I have plenty of software engineering experience, over 10 years. I quit my job back in November of last year to sort of pursue things that bring me a lot of joy. And one of those things is like helping students and engineers earlier in their careers sort of upskill and grow and sort of reach a big tech job that pays a lot of money. So that's what I do most of my time. On my spare time, I also love playing chess. I signed up for a chess club, and I've been going every week and playing a classical game, usually about 3 hours in length. Love soccer. Anyone excited about the World Cup next year? Yeah, let's go. And I like board games in general as well. So I'm super excited to be today. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks for coming. Before we get into the content, I wanted to briefly give you like my career snapshot. And so I graduated from the University of Windsor. I did co-op, and my major was computer science. I landed my internship at IBM. I did all of my work terms at IBM, and I worked in the database software management that they have that called DB2. After that, I returned to my third year, did my classes, and then I had the summer off before my fourth year. I decided to try to step up and get a more impressive internship. So trying more for the big tech companies, and I managed to land at Microsoft. That was probably one of the greatest summers that I've had. They invest a lot of money into their internship program, and so they had, I think on our last day, they scheduled like a concert, and they brought Deadmau5 and Macklemore. It was like insane, and they gave everyone like a Surface Pro. And so, yeah, really good times. I returned to university for my fourth year, and about this time, right, where it's the fall recruiting season for landing a full-time job by the end of the year. And so lots of companies do recruiting in the fall, and I took advantage of that to apply to Google. I had been applying to Google like basically all my careers. Was my dream job, and they were always ghosting me. And I felt like now that I had Microsoft on my resume, I had better chance of getting there. And so I did my interviews. They flew me to California. They paid for all my expenses. It was pretty great. And I managed to get the job before graduating, which was a huge sigh of relief. I ended up working at Google for 10 years, 8 of them in California. So I worked as an engineering productivity engineer, basically making engineers more productive. And I worked in the search ads area. So I worked with a team that sort of would select which ads to show on Google search. It's done via an auction, and so I helped a lot those engineers. I moved back to Canada about 2 years ago, and I remained in the same team. But many different reasons led me to quitting. I think one of them was I was kind of burnt out. I wanted to try something new. I had been at Google for so long, and I was also on the same team the entire time. And so I had some savings and decided to sort of try this risky thing that doesn't make a lot of money, but brings me a lot of joy. And so I'm doing like a reverse career path that a lot of people do, where they take more risks earlier in their careers. Now that I'm more established, I have some savings. I'm taking risks now rather than earlier in my career. So now that you know this random person that showed up to your campus, let's talk about why you should listen to me and like my credentials. So I served in the Google's early career hiring committee. So basically, I was making hire and no hire decisions with respect to people or like students just joining Google as a new grad. And so that gave me a lot of experience into looking at people's profiles, looking at interview feedback, and sort of deciding, who to hire or not. I also did a lot of recruiting trips for Google. So I would go to various universities, some of them in the US, a lot of them in Canada are also listed here. And I did, like interview workshops. So events like this, resume building workshops, where I interacted with the students, answered their questions, talked about what it's like working at Google, what it's like working as a software engineer, and that type of thing. I also conducted many different technical interviews. So I was a trained interviewer, probably did over hundreds of interviews. And also I did mock interviews for various programs within Google for helping students get an internship, like practice mock interviews, things like that. I've also been in your shoes. Even though I stayed at Google for the entire time, there were some times where I looked outside just to see if I could, get a better offer from some other company. And so I was able to land offers, and I was able to get many final rounds for many big tech companies. Some of them are listed here. And as I mentioned before, now I'm a career coach helping students get into big tech. And so for today, we'll be talking about the interview, the technical coding interview. And it's going to be very like a hands-on workshop where you will be participating, or I hope you will be participating for a lot of the presentation. As you may have seen in some of the marketing materials, there will be like a raffle for basically getting some of my services for free, which include a resume review, a LinkedIn profile review, your portfolio review, your GitHub account review, and as well as a technical mock interview. I think this is super valuable, and I hope it's a good incentive for you to sort of participate in this presentation. And so we will have some volunteers sort of taking note of who participates. Every time you participate, you'll get an entry to this raffle. So you may participate multiple times to get a better chance of getting all this value. But I will try to be as equitable as I can to ask different people questions every time. So yeah, before we get into the technical coding interview that we'll be doing, I just wanted to briefly mention about the different skills and signals that our employers care about when doing interviews, in particular lead code style interviews. I think a lot of people, are grinding lead code, which is a fair way to prepare for interviews. But there's also many other aspects or skills that are also evaluated on the interview. And so the first two that we see here, problem solving and coding, it's like things that you can work on while you're grinding lead code. And so for problem solving, employers look at your ability to break down problems, see what kind of data structures you know, can you combine multiple concepts to sort of solve a single problem. And for your coding, they see like how comfortable are you with your preferred programming language, can you implement your ideas into code, and how readable is your code, how clean it is. Other signals that you may not be sort of getting reps in lead code, for example, testing. And I think I do this as well, where I write all the code and the first thing I do is just submit the problem and not actually go through line by line and see if there's any bugs in my code. And so that's something that's tested on interviews. Then there's growth mindset. So basically looking at if I give you feedback or if I give you a hint, how do you respond to that? Do you sort of dismiss it, or do you take that as a learning and apply any feedback that's given to you during the interview? This is especially important for early career roles where employers are looking at your potential, like how can you adapt, and they want someone with a growth mindset. Communication is also a big one. So can you basically tell me your thought process when you're solving the problem? If you're stuck, can you communicate that you're stuck or like why you're struggling, so that the interviewer can sort of step in and try to help you. And then there's efficacy. So you may be able to solve the problems in, I don't know, 3 hours, but usually you need to do it within an hour for the interview. And so working on your speed over time is something that you should work on. I think by grinding lead code, you can achieve this. So we'll be going through a coding problem, and I wanted to bring up the structure of an interview. And so usually at the start, there's going to be some intros, usually no more than 5 minutes. So you get to know the interviewer, they get to know you. Then the biggest portion is the technical question. So I've separated this into 6 different steps. We will go deep into each one so that you know more or less what to expect during an interview. And then at the end, there's a Q&A where if there's time, you can ask the interviewer some questions about the team that you're applying for, the projects that they're working on, something about the company, whatever it is that might make it easier for you to sort of decide whether you want to work at that company or not. So for intros, usually what you want to do is, just introduce yourself, say your name, that you're a student from wherever, some background about yourself. Doesn't have to be super formal. You want to connect with the interviewer in a way. Do you want them to like you so that you have better chances of passing the interview? You also want to speak about maybe past projects that might be relevant to the position that you're applying for. And you also want to end maybe with talking about something that shows your personality. So something about your interests, your hobbies, so that there's some other leeways of pathways to speaking about different things, as find something in common so that they're more likely to like you. And so for our first audience question, I would like to ask if anyone would like to introduce themselves, just like a quick pitch about yourself. And I see one hand, so.
I'm Chuck. I'm doing Sheridan College right now, and I'm really interested in this presentation here because I really want to learn about how to get into big companies and like how do I start? Is that like?
I think I saw another hand raise. So for this one, try to introduce yourself as if this was an interview. So Chuck there sort of talked about like the context at where we're at, but say if you were interviewing at Google and I was the interviewer, like how would you introduce yourself and what would you say to the interviewer?
All right. Hi, my name is Mustafa. I'm a student at Sheridan College. I was very much interested in this role that you've posted. I'm currently a student at Sheridan College. I've been going there for 3 years now. I've gotten some more further knowledge and insights into the program, and I think that this role that I'm interviewing for will be able to help me grow. And I'd like to grow with the company, and I'd like to grow with your team. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering. I think just to give some feedback for you, Mustafa, I know it's very hard to put you on the spot, right? But I think one thing, I think everyone could benefit from sort of crafting this ahead of time so that you're not winging it, because sometimes it's very difficult to just come up and introduce yourself. And once you have something down, then and you practice it a bit, it's going to help you out a lot. And then focus on more about you rather than the position, right? You want to show interest. I mean, I think it's implicit that you're interested in the role because you're applying for it and you're in an interview, and so they want to probably learn more about yourself. And it's usually a question that's asked, or, just introduce yourself, so to sort of break the ice, so that you're not immediately like solving a technical question, right? And so, thank you to the volunteers. Now let's go into the more technical part of the workshop. So we'll be, like I said, we'll be solving this problem step by step. The problem for today is called group anagrams. So you're given an array of strings, and you have to group the anagrams together. So we have an example down here. The input, you have eat, tea, tan, ate, nat, and bat. And the output is a list of lists where each sublist is a group of anagrams. And so we see eat, ate, and tea are together in one list. We have tan and nat in another list, and then bat on another list. And so the first thing that we need to do on an interview is sort of what I call the clarify stage. We need to clarify what the problem that we're given. Usually it's sort of vague in nature, and you need to sort of scope out the problem, ask clarifying questions about the inputs, the outputs, and make sure you're in the same page with the interviewer so that you've understood the problem. Now, this problem is like fairly simple, but we still want to make sure that we're on the same page with the interviewer. And so this is another opportunity to volunteer. So what questions would you ask about this problem? And I've also left the problem statement here in case you forgot. You have an array of strings, you need to group them together. All the anagrams, you need to group them together. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about the constraints, if all of the strings are going to be the same length, like 3 characters long.
Yeah, that's a good question. For this problem, we could have different size words. So it could be words of length 3, words of length 4, any length. But this will be like real words, so probably not too long. So probably no longer than, 15 characters or something. So like a realistic scenario. Any other questions? There's tons of questions you can ask.
Does it have to be in a certain time complexity?
That's something, I guess not about the problem, but I guess a better way of phrasing it, like, are there any time constraints in terms of, do we need to solve it? Does the code need to run within a second or something? Let's not worry about that for now. But other questions.
So for the list of strings in the group, for the list of strings in the list, how are we grouping these strings together? What's the correlation between the string and the given list?
Yeah. So good question. I guess a better question would be like, what does it mean for what is an anagram, right? So the definition of like how to group things. So an anagram is basically when you rearrange the characters in a string. So say you have 2 words, to check if they're anagrams of each other, it's like they need to have the same characters. Doesn't matter which order they're in. Yeah, good question. Any other ideas, things to ask? Yeah.
I was just going to ask if the strings are assumed to be ASCII or if they're allowed to be Unicode.
Yeah, great question. So for this one, we'll assume ASCII. Yeah. Do you want to change the inputs? What do you mean by that?
Like changing the cat, tea. Do you want to change those strings or are they fixed?
You don't want to change them. You just want to, group together whichever ones are anagrams of each other. Does that make sense?
I meant do we write those letters in the code, or we want to change it based on what the user inputs? Do you want to get it from the user, or we only just write it in the code?
So we're just concerned about writing the code for whatever type of input that we might get. Like we're not responsible for creating the input, if that makes sense.
If there are no common anagrams, do I just return an empty list or nothing at all?
Okay, great questions. So if there are no common anagrams, then each word would be its own group. Okay, so let's go through some questions that I came up with. I think there's a lot of duplicates based on what we heard from you guys today. So the first one was like, what is an anagram? So we talked about fundamentally, an anagram is just 2 words that share the same number of letters and the same frequency of each letter. This one, I don't think anyone mentioned, but does the output need to be in some type of format? So earlier I showed, I think, a list of eat, tea, and some other word. Like, in which order do those words need to be in, or does it matter, or like do we need to care about that? That usually will simplify our solution if we ask questions about that. Are the input strings guaranteed to be lowercase? So what happens if we have uppercase A and lowercase a? Are they the same character? So if someone were to ask me about this, I would say just assume that they're all lowercase. That way they don't have to worry about this very trivial thing and can simplify your solution even more. This question was asked, like, can we assume ASCII only? What about Unicode? So for the purposes of today, we'll only care about ASCII. This one, like basically getting the constraints of the problem. So how big can the input be? How many words can we get? What's the size of each word? We talked a little bit about the length of the words. Can strings appear multiple times? So if we have a duplicate, how do we handle that? If we do see that, then they should be grouped together because they're anagrams of each other. And I think we kind of talked about this, like I don't know, maybe not. So yeah, what about empty strings? So I think for this problem, I would say don't worry about empty strings, they'll not show up. But if you had to handle them, then you might have to put them in its own group, just the empty string. Okay, so based on what we talked about different questions that we asked, we also want to come up with some test cases that show that we understood what the problem is asking, and so we can come up with the input and the desired expected output. And so we can sort of go through this, and that will let the interviewer know, okay, this person understood what is being asked of them. So can anyone come up with some test cases that we should handle for this problem?
Hello, my name is Yoon. One of the test cases I would think of would be to have two different inputs that are the exact same word, but one of them would be lowercase and one of them would be uppercase.
Okay, yeah, great. For this problem, I guess we already talked about, okay, let's assume that everything is lowercase, so we don't even have to worry about that. But that's something that if they say no, then yeah, we need to check lowercase against uppercase. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Naz. What if the input was numbers?
Numbers, okay. Let's assume that it's only...
Yeah, it's only...
yeah, like...
I mean, just to think of like test cases.
Yeah, but that's a good one. That's a good one. And we didn't even clarify that, so that's good.
Hi, I'm Kojo. A test case that we could consider is if there is no anagrams, like for example, all the characters are not related.
Great, yeah, that's a good one.
Hi, I'm John. I was just wondering for one of the test cases could be, I might have just lost my train of thought actually.
Oh no.
If the word that's given to us is not a word, like if the word that the combination of letters in the string is not a word to be reorganized into, possibly.
What do you mean? Like an invalid word?
Yeah, like an invalid word.
Okay. Yeah, let's assume that, yeah, everything is valid. But yeah, good point.
Hi, my name is Akshaj. I was thinking that if two words are like similar words, if we say like eat and eat, so would they be like anagram of each other, or like how does it work?
Yeah, so yeah, if we have duplicates, then we have to group them together. So that could be one of the test cases.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Daniel. A good test case, I think, would be if each string was just a uniform amount of single characters. So like several B's, several C's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be a good one.
Hi, my name is Joe. And yeah, we could have a bunch of passing test cases just to make sure that the algorithm...
But give me an example.
For example, yeah, the word eat, then TAE, something like that, just three different combinations. And we need some passing test cases, right? Just to know that, okay, this works.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, my name is Xavier. Something which we could try to come up with is some scenarios which are unexpected, which may maybe break it or something. So, for example, I think the assumption based on what we've seen is that it's all going to be single words. So, what if we introduce a space and have a few words, or if we put like apostrophes or something? Just make sure it doesn't break, or clarify with the person asking the question, whether we're going to include things like that.
I think that's something that we should bring up during the clarify stage. Like whether we would see spaces or just A through Z, or lowercase, uppercase, things like that. Let's take one more if there's someone else that wants to chime in.
My name is Chuck. I think a good test case would be when there's just like single, like the characters, there's no links in between them. There's just a bunch of them. And how much time will we manage to like solve this one here? Is that I think efficiency is also a big factor.
Yeah. And we'll speak more about that in some of the other stages. So thanks for bringing that up. So here are some test cases that I came up with. So this is sort of covered in the test case that was given to us. Basically, all the words are anagrams, like in the same group. So ET and 8. Nothing is an anagram. I think we also talked about this one. So something like ABC, they all have to be in their own group. Near anagrams, I don't think anyone said this, but something that is almost an anagram, but it's not, and making sure that we test that logic. No words, so empty list. So what do we return? I think just empty list. Just a single word, it should be grouped by itself, or a combination of all of these things, which a good one would be the test case that was given to us in the problem statement. Okay, so now let's talk about the design stage. So the design stage is basically when you come up with different ways of approaching the problem, like how to solve it, and basically describe any data structures that you're using to solve the problem in that way. You usually want to come up with a few approaches. So maybe like the first thing that comes to mind, maybe some brute force approach, and then a more optimized approach. So you can sort of talk about it with the interviewer. And so for this problem, so what are some ways of solving the problem? I can think of 3 ways. There might be many other ways, but yeah, any volunteers that want to mention, how to solve this problem? You can only just mention one of the ways of solving the problem is fine. No need to come up with more than one way.
So I'm thinking about we gonna using the hash map, and we use hash map to count the character in the string in the array. Like for cat, we have 1C, 1A, and 1G. If the 2 string have the same hash map, we can put it into one group.
Yeah, excellent. So basically having some type of frequency count for each word and add those into a hash map, and then different words will be grouped within the same key. Yeah. Great. So that's one of the approaches that I thought as well. So can anyone come up with another approach?
My name is Tung, T-U-N-G.
I'm not quite sure what a hash map is, but the way I would tackle it is that I would take every string which I get and then put it alphabetically, so it's easier for me to check them. So I'll just like check with every string. Like I'll put a string as the top category in as each bin. Like it would have like it alphabetically, and then I would check on the alphabetized one, and then skip each bin based on that string which I used to check, and then just slot them in, or create a new one at the end, a new bin.
Okay, I'm not quite sure, but I feel like you're on the right track or have like good idea.
I just don't want to have to check like every permutation of the word. So like if every time I make a bin, I just have the characters in alphabetical order, so that I could, as soon as it's not alphabetically like in that bin, I could immediately skip that.
Okay. Do you mean
so like for example
the words you sort?
Yeah, I sort each word alphabetically so that I don't have to check every permutation of the word.
Yeah.
So there's only one check per bin.
that's one strategy that I have listed here.
I think this is like a true like brute force solution where you would have to go through each string in the array, and you could implement for each string you could implement like a counter for each character. So like, let's say we're talking about the word cat. So you would look at the word cat, and then you would increment like the letter C if it contains a C, A, and then T. So you're keeping a counter of what char is in the string, and if there is at least one for each of those strings, if there's at least one like in terms of frequency of character within each string, then you would increment that counter. And if there's not like at least one character in each string, then you could say that it's not an anagram. I was kind of like thinking about it, but I'm not too sure if that.
I didn't quite follow. So you're gonna have a frequency count of each word, and then
So a frequency counter of each char within each word.
Okay, yeah. And then what do you do with that?
And then once you figure out if at least there's one character within each string,
One character within each string.
For example, like you have a list of strings, cat, like or 8, eat, and T. You have each of those words. You go through the list, or you go through that string, and you count each letter within that specific string. So 8, you have 1 A, 1 T, and 1 E. And then once you count all of those values, or once you count all those characters with the frequency counter, you would then go next to the next string. So let's say,
and then see if they match that same counter.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. Yeah. That's kind of like the brute force approach, and just going through each word and comparing it to some other word and seeing if they are anagrams, and then group them.
Right. Correct.
And the way that you do the comparison of anagram, I guess could be multitude of ways that we described earlier, like sorting or like hashing the frequency map, like you just described. So
correct.
So great. So those are the 3 ways that I had in mind. So like a quick recap, basically, the brute force approach would be we go through every word, we try to map it to some already grouped anagram. At the start, there's no group, so the first word becomes its own group. Then we go to the next word, we check, okay, does this one belong to this group? If not, then create a new group, and so on and so forth. That would be the brute force approach. The other approaches involved hash maps that we described already. So basically, one of them we could sort the word and use that as a key to the map. And so we would map a bunch of things to the same key. And if they map, it means that they map to that they're the same anagram, right? And then the other approach, the first one that we discussed, was the frequency count. So we count each of the letters within the word, how many times does it happen, and use that as the key to our hash map. Okay, so we discussed some approaches. Now we go to the next stage, which is the evaluation stage. So basically, we want to talk about trade-offs between all of these solutions, which ones are basically compare them against each other, and basically come to a conclusion of which solution should we go with. So I guess a question that we should ask ourselves is like, what kind of constraints are there in this problem that will help us decide which solution to pick? So I talked about this earlier a little bit during the clarification stage. I'm wondering if you guys remember or you paid attention to that. There should be like 3 different things that we should take into account in terms of like which solution to pick. Any ideas?
I think he mentioned something about time constraints. What time complexity we were focusing on.
Right. So what could potentially affect the time complexity?
Yeah.
So in this case, what would be those things? What are those factors? I think he mentioned them already. Yeah. Or at least one of them. Yeah.
I guess one of them would be the size of the array.
Right. So like how many words
How
are
many
there?
anagrams are there?
Yeah. How many words? Yeah.
Kojo, one of the problems would be like counting each character would take a long time for each word.
Mhm.
And comparing them or incrementing the counter would take a long time for each word.
Right. So like the length of each word, it's also another key thing that we should take into account.
Right.
Anyone else?
My name is June. I was thinking that like it depends on, because we mentioned hashing before, and it depends on like the type of hashing algorithm that we use, and depending on which one we use, it'd be more or less likely to encounter collisions, for example.
Yeah, great. So we talked about different approaches, like, okay, we would sort it or we would have a frequency counter. So those things will also affect the time complexity. So yeah, we discussed the number of words, the length of the words, and also the alphabet size. So that one. So for this one, I think we assume that it's only going to be lowercase and it's going to be A through Z. So there's like 26 different characters. We talked about different solutions. Wondering if anyone want to take a stab at mentioning what are the time and space complexities for the three solutions that we talked about. Maybe we can start with the brute force approach, where we compare each word to another word. Like, what would be the time complexity? Yeah, in the back. O of n squared times, I guess, the complexity of determining if two things are an anagram, right? Because you're going to each pair of words. In the worst case, maybe all the words are different or not anagrams, and you have to go through every word and then check if they're anagrams. Great. What about for some of the hashing approaches? Say the sorting one. What would be the time complexity for that one?
I could be wrong. Isn't it O of n log n for time complexity? And space complexity also O of like log n or something?
So for the time complexity, you have the right idea. So we're assuming n in this case is say the number of words.
Yeah.
There's another variable out there, so it's not exactly n log n.
It's not n log n. Okay.
Yeah, but I think we're in the right track.
Okay.
I'm Matthias. I believe the hashing solution would just be n time and n space. You only have to go over every string one time.
Yeah, I mean, you go through every string once, but you then sort that string. So
yeah, but just by the length of the string. So for the input size is just like the amount of strings, right?
Yeah. So let's assume that n is the number of words, and then say k the size of each word.
Okay. Then n times k for the hashing solution for the time complexity.
Almost there.
N plus k. N plus k.
No. Like a combination of what both of you guys said will be the right answer. Yeah, you.
My name is Danny, and I think it would be O of n times m log n.
Yes. Yeah. You said
n times m log m.
Okay. M. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So two variables.
Yeah, I use k in this case. Yeah. So we're going through each word, and then for each one of those words, we're sorting them, and usually that's done in what would be like n log n or k log k. I'll just reveal. So n times k. So for each word, you go through the length of the word, and that should be linear time in terms of the size of the word. Okay, so we talked about different approaches. We also care about the complexity of like writing the code for these things. Like we talked about, choosing the right language. Usually you say which language you want to use in the interview ahead of time. You don't get to pick, I'm going to use C++ now because it would be easier in this for this problem. So you kind of have to be aware of that. So usually you just pick the language that you're most comfortable with or whatever the company wants you to write on. So, but in this case, based on your own programming language, which one do you think would be the easier to implement? Yeah.
Python.
Yeah. And which solution would be easier to implement?
The hash.
Which one of the two?
I forget the third one. Sorry.
The one with frequency? Okay, I guess it depends how you implement it. I mean, this is kind of subjective too, so it's hard to say. I think for me, it would be easier to just use the sorting approach. I think it's way more intuitive to me, but that could be debatable, I think. So if we don't reach the hashing, though, I feel like that's going to take more work to implement, and I think a bit more prone to bugs, the brute force approach. I think to me, like I said, using something as sorted would do a lot of the work for us. So the frequency count, I feel like it should be pretty easy. There might be some built-in data structures that can help us do that easily. I'm not a Python expert, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. So during an interview process, when you're doing the technical phase, so you would argue that it's maybe try to get the best time and space complexity you can within your constraints of like, program, whatever. But like you don't have to aim for the best per se, as long as it functions. And it's like good enough.
It depends. So I think that's something, it's very nuanced, right? So I think for this problem, I mentioned that the size of the words is relatively small, like probably less than 15 words. We're not going to have like like 1,000 times, right? So that restricts that K parameter that we talked about earlier, like the size of the word. And so that makes it so that maybe it doesn't matter too much. I mean, you might get like a very small optimization because you're multiplying by that log K. But that log K, I feel like it's so small that it almost doesn't make a difference, right? And so these are things that you can talk about. Because in theory, if you have longer words, for sure, then maybe you should use the frequency count solution. But here we have a little bit more leeway, I feel. And so I would personally code the sorting one because it's just very easy to me. But others might find maybe they have solved this problem before or something similar where they use some type of frequency counter, and then it's just very easy for them. So those are things that you can discuss with the interviewer. And as long as you make reasonable arguments, it should be okay. All right. And for the next step is the coding phase. So basically, you're just you came up with a solution, right? You discussed it with the interviewer. They give you the okay to implement that solution. Now you have to code it. You have to start coding in your preferred programming language and describe your thought process as you're writing code. Maybe divide the problem into various steps and then complete each step along the way. And as you're struggling or like if you need some help, you can ask the interviewer for hints or guidance. And so, for this step, I would love if someone would volunteer to write the code for any of the three solutions, whatever you're most comfortable with. For this one, I feel like it's more, more high stakes. So I'll give like 3 entries to the raffle. Yeah, so you'll have to come over. We'll watch you code, and I'll give you feedback. Don't worry, you'll be okay.
Who's going to be the brave soul? Let's go.
Yeah. Come up with a reasonable function name.
Okay, so it's how do you spell like AN ring. All right. Okay. So first, I guess what I will do is So I will initialize a set which is equivalent to a hash map. So basically, like whatever input you input into it, you can't be duplicated. It's an array with no duplicates.
Yeah, I guess
we can do that.
It depends. So
Depends.
because you're now implementing something that we didn't talk about, right? So we talked about hash maps. Do you
Okay.
know hash maps in Python?
Yeah, it's
okay.
equivalent to dictionary. Okay.
So I'll probably stick to that instead of having like a list of sets or like a hash map of sets or something.
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, maybe just initialize a hash map.
Okay. Will be a dictionary.
Mhm.
So now we will first we will be going through each of these elements,
Mhm. Yeah.
which will be for and we'll be adding that to the hash map.
We need to do something to
Yeah,
the
check
word before we
check it. Check to see if it's present over there or not.
No.
Hash thing, right?
What was the
Okay,
key thing that we discussed?
Okay, so basically we'll be I'm sorry, can you explain the hash map again?
So I think we were discussing about even you said like
right,
like the sorting approach. So
Mhm.
we need to sort the word,
right,
and then use that sorted word as the key in the
Mhm.
hash map,
Okay, got it.
right?
Got it. So we'll be sorting it
Okay. Yeah.
and okay. So if it's not there in the hash map, you initialize it with an empty array.
Oh, you tell me.
Okay, all right.
um,
All right.
So you initialize it to empty, and then do you want to add the elements?
Yeah, one by one. Sorry, my mind is blank right now.
Don't worry, you're doing great.
All right.
You can either do it in like a separate line, or you could do it right there in that same line. So maybe instead of creating an empty list, you can
Mhm.
just have it be a
Yeah,
list with
mhm.
just that element.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It will be
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe.
okay.
I think there might be some bugs in the code. So now we're going to jump into the testing phase. In the testing phase, you just have to sort of go line by line, evaluate your variables, make sure that everything is working as you intended to be. And so, does anyone want to volunteer to come up, describe some errors in the code, fix them, and yeah, just do that?
This block is blank. I don't know if there's like any code to be inputted on there.
No, I think it should be okay. Yeah.
Should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that,
So
this
how
code
about
looks perfect.
maybe say line 8?
Oh, line 8?
Line
Okay.
8 and 9, like the
Okay.
combination of those two.
Yeah. So it says here, if not sorted in hash map, if not sorted string in hash map, and it goes like this: hash map sorted string equals element, and then the other one is and the other one is hash map sorted string dot append.
So I think it's important to grab like a test case and then run it through the code and then see what happens. So you can either do that by running it itself, or you run it in, I guess, in your mind. You keep track of, okay, this is my variable, this is what's been added to the hash map, and then like evaluate each
Yeah.
line and then see if you find any mistakes.
Yeah. Well, but the code looks perfect except for line 4, which I think this is blank.
Yeah, that's fine. It should be blank at the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what does this append do?
So append adds an element to a list.
An element to the list?
Yeah.
So this one gets added to the element, but it says if not sorted string in hash map. Doesn't mean that is that this one doesn't exist, the sorted string.
So what we're saying there, if this particular sorted string is not a key in the hash map, then we add it to the element. So so try to think of a concrete example. So let's talk about the eat, for example. We were talking about the word eat. So we go through line 7, we see, okay, our hash map is right now it's empty. We sort it, so eat becomes AET. Then we evaluate that line, so this key is not in the hash map. And then we add it. So now the hash map has some key AET, and then we have a list with just eat, right?
Eat.
But then we go to line 9, and then for that same key, we append a new element.
Oh.
So we append eat again. Do you think that could be a problem?
So this one will give eat right here. This one will probably print out eat in the output. And if this isn't if this eat doesn't exist in the hash map, then it does it adds an element, or
so it creates a list with that element.
Oh, creates a list within that
and then we append that element again. So I think that's a mistake, and so that's one possible mistake that we have found in the code. So
you looks like you found an error right here.
Yeah, I think so. Do people agree? Is that a logic error there? Does anyone? You don't have to come up here. Just mention if there are any other issues that you might see with the code.
Wonderful. Okay, let's take a look. If we do not find the sorted string in the hash map, we enter that element into the hash map under the key of the sorted string. Otherwise, we will append that element to the sorted string key value pair. Let's see. Let's think. What did you say line 8 was wrong? Was messed up?
So what I was saying was that say you're processing the first word. So our hash map is empty. We go through the first element, say it's eat. So we check that it's not in the hash map. The key it's not in the hash map. We add it.
Sure.
Right. We have a list of that. And then we sort of append that
element again.
So how would you fix that?
Right. So I suppose we would only check. We'd only append that element if it were. So this would be like else, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Can
We'd say.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Anything else that you see wrong with the code? If you don't see it,
Not currently. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Let's go. Thank you.
I think you should remove the else statement and then add the continuous statement in the if block so that we can like if the key is not inside the dictionary, we can add a new key and add the element inside the array and then continue it without the continue to execute the rest of the block.
Okay, so just
So
not
you-
changing the logic, just the way that we implement the logic. Is that
Yeah. So can you delete the else statement and give the last statement back to and then add the continue statement in at the end of the if block.
add a continuous statement?
Yeah, continue. It's continue.
Oh, you mean in this if?
Yeah, continue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's one way. I don't want to get into all the ways we could solve the issue.
So
Yeah.
if we don't need to continue statement, you can just remove the element inside the array.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another way.
Yeah, and I think in the return statement it should be value and then double parenthesis, the parenthesis beside the values, because it should be a method. I think
You want me to delete it?
like values and then parenthesis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, minor issue there. Yes.
Yeah, and then the value it will return a tuple of tuple, so we need to convert it back to the list. So it should be like return array list of x for x in hash map values, because it's going to return tuples.
So I think the values are already lists, right? You're saying that it's going to be a tuple instead of a list?
Yeah, so the values method of the dictionary, it will return tuple of tuple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it will be more memory efficiency if we use tuple in Python if the value is fixed.
Okay. I'm not a Python expert, so I'm not going to challenge you on that. Testing, we've done the coding, the testing. Now we want to go to the optimized stage. So here we sort of many things can happen. So depending on what kind of code you wrote, there might be like maybe a more optimized approach to solve the problem that you didn't get to. If you've already written the optimized code, the interviewer might ask you a different question depending on how much time there's left. They might change the parameters of the problem a little bit. So for example, we made the assumption that the word length would be minimal. And they might ask you, okay, what would happen if we could have sort of words that don't exist? So maybe like a string of 1,000 characters, all A's. So what would you do in that situation? So they might ask you questions like that to sort of see how much you know, like how can you adjust? Comment?
Just a quick question. So for Fang in particular, for the technical interview phase, do they normally only give one question for this technical question phase, like a singular question, or is it multiple?
Yeah. So it depends again on the company. I know that at Meta, they try to ask you 2 questions and you have to solve both of them on time. Otherwise, it really depends on the interviewer. For example, I like just using the one question and then just adding more and more complexity at the end if there's still time left over. Other people just like to jump into another question if there's too much time left. So it really depends on the company and the interviewer and their preference. So I think for today, we solved the question using the sorting approach. What could happen is like what I said, like assume that the length of the word could be much bigger. So in that case, maybe we would implement the other solution, the one with the frequency counter, so that we don't have that extra log k added to our complexity. I'll not ask anyone to go through that. I think we've had enough participation for today. But the code would look something like this, where you create some type of frequency list. Then you go through each character in the word and you add one element to each character that you see. You convert that to a tuple and then you use that as a key. And so the code will be like very similar to what we had before, just that the code in the for loop is a bit different.
so I just wanted to finish up talking about some other topics that might be relevant to your technical interviewing preparation. So DSA, you have to sort of know your DSA, know the trade-offs between each data structure, when to use them, how they compare against each other. Know the time complexities of things like sorting, appending to a list, appending to a linked list, appending to a queue, retrieving from a heap. You should know all these things. There are many different topics that you can sort of learn. Here are some of the big ones. I think if you should sort of try to identify some of your weaker areas and then solve more problems in that category. There are some sites like NeetCode which do this quite nicely, where you can say you want to work on dynamic programming problems. You'll have a section there where you can just go and practice problems there. That way you sort of address your weaknesses one by one. In terms of how to practice, questions?
Sorry for all the questions.
No worries.
Would it be good for you to memorize like actual algorithms, like Dijkstra's algorithm or like backtracking algorithms, or do you think that's not in the scope for?
Yeah, it depends. So I think even, for example, dynamic programming, it doesn't come up a lot in interviews. It may come up in some OAs, like some very difficult ones. So I don't think it's like the biggest bang for the buck, like going for the really obscure data structures. For example, red-black trees. You almost will never see. I've never seen a question that asks you to implement red-black trees. Or Dijkstra's, I think it may come up, but not super often. So I would say be familiar with some of these concepts, but not practice them too much, because there's only so much you can do in like the limited amount of time we have. Yeah, good question. Did you have a question as well, or?
I've heard that Meta is now moving away from lead code based questions and are going into like take home projects, basically like full stack websites and whatnot. How do you prepare for such?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of details into what the technical interviews will be like at Meta. I think we just have to wait for more anecdotes from people going through that type of experience and see, what they did and how we can sort of prepare for those types of interviews. From what I think, I mean, it seems like they're gonna give you access to AI, so you can do whatever you want. So I guess in that case, you might have to focus more on practical matters. Like, can you write an app, or like we don't really know what they're gonna be asking, right? So it's hard to. I don't want to speculate either, but the preparation might be very different if it's gonna be just a take-home assignment. So, okay. In terms of practicing, you should try to simulate the environment of an interview as much as you can. So if you are practicing by yourself, I recommend going to a site like LeetCode. They have tons of problems. Try to start solving the easy ones. Focus on just being able to solve the problems first, and work on efficacy later, just the speed at which you can solve problems. I recommend taking at most 45 minutes per problem. If you're unable to solve the problem, just look at the solution and do some type of self-assessment, like try to determine why you couldn't solve the problem. So was it because you just lacked the knowledge, you didn't know the DSA, or was it because some other reason you didn't know how to implement a specific DSA, or you weren't aware of some built-in data structure? Yeah, question?
Do employers look at your LeetCode page? Like, how LeetCode has like your... No, they don't care about that? All right.
I don't think so, no.
Because I listed my link tree anyways, you know what I mean? But like, I'm just curious if that's like because you know how they look at your GitHub and they want to see contributions. There's a similar system with LeetCode.
Yeah.
Where the amount of submissions you have.
Yeah, I'm aware. I'm not sure. Google didn't do that. As part of a hiring committee member, I didn't do that. So I don't know, maybe some employers do. I can't claim that I know how everyone evaluates people, or like how they do these types of things.
but yeah, as you work through more and more problems, once the easy ones are too easy for you, then upgrade to medium, because medium is kind of the standard difficulty in the industry. If you can solve mediums within 45 minutes, you're getting into good shape. Try to speak or basically go through your thoughts, talk about what you're thinking through as you're solving the problem. That will help you because you sort of have to do the same during an interview, right? You have to describe your thought process, how you're solving the problem, how you're breaking it down, what you're struggling with. And a nice thing about LeetCode is that you can ask for hints in the platform, so you can try different things if you're stuck. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. How often do hard questions show up? Let's take Fang interviews as an example.
Yeah, again, it sort of depends on the individual. I would say, I don't know, just if you want a random number, I would say 10%. So I would say focus more on the medium ones. Yeah. I think people don't like when I say this, but I think there's some element of luck when you're interviewing. And so when I interviewed at Google, I did tons of preparation and I felt very confident on my interviews. I did poorly on the first one because I was nervous, but once I got the hang of it, I did very well on the rest. I found the questions to be easy for me. But when I talked to a friend who was interviewing at about the same time, he had much more difficult questions or questions that weren't as straightforward for me. So I think in a way I got lucky with the questions because I felt like I just did it didn't hit any of my weaknesses, for example. And so there's some element of luck there where you might get an interviewer that's more strict and they might give you a hard problem. But if you do some research, you might figure out which companies ask hard questions, depending on how many people have applied there. So
to expand upon that, let's say you hypothetically get a brutal question, just absolutely 99% of people you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Let's say you manage to actually program that past that. Do you think that's weighed more in the interview stage? The interviewer knows that the question's very difficult and you did really well on it, so he's going to give you extra brownie points compared to other people that he gave other questions.
It depends. Sorry, it almost always it depends. So every interviewer will have some type of expectations for different candidates. So if you're an intern, they'll sort of expect less than someone who's a full-time or a new grad or someone who's senior. So they might ask the same question, but say the hard question, if you solve it via brute force, it might be okay, but depends on your background in the context of who they're interviewing with. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Being that you've been at Google for 10 years and you participated in the talent acquisition space as well, interviewing candidates, what would you say is probably the most important, solving the question or kind of the methodology, approaching the question, also the background experience, the way the person thinks, and how important are those two? And would you value one over the other?
Yeah, great question. So I'll take this last question. I'll speed run through the rest, and then I feel like I'm getting really good questions that could go in the Q&A. But yeah, I think like I mentioned, there are many different signals that interviewers are looking for. Different companies also have different priorities. So for example, I was mentioning Meta, they give you 2 questions. So they really care about efficacy, so how fast can you code the problems, and the coding part, because I think they want you to run the code as well and have it pass all the test cases. For example, Google, they care more about the problem solving. So you might not code the whole thing or you might not find the most optimal solution. But if we get a good sense of your problem solving skills, if you're able to break down the problem, and maybe you're a bit slower, so maybe the coding portion is a bit slower, it might be okay. At least at Google, we thought, depending on the candidate, that coding is something that can be taught or it can be improved much easier than problem solving, for example. And so there's lots of waiting around of okay, we see that this candidate maybe is from a non-traditional CS background. Maybe they studied chemical engineering and they're interviewing at Google, and they do not so well on the coding section, but their problem solving is good. So maybe we see the potential, like, okay, we can teach them or like go through this, I don't know, coding boot camp within Google, and they'll get up to speed, like by getting them more mentorship in coding, for example. And so there's a lot of those very nuanced decisions. And you might think, okay, you did the interview, but you feel like you didn't complete all the code, and you maybe not feel as confident about getting an offer. But a lot of these things are taken into account, like what school you went to, like how much training you've had, what type of internships you did before. And so there's like a lot of different factors that come into play. And so there's not like one single thing, but it's about the totality of the whole situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Let me speed run through the rest, and then we'll take questions. The better way of practicing, I feel like, it's mock interviews. So they simulate the environment strictly like how it would happen on a real interview. So try to find a friend or a mentor, or get like a group of students to sort of do mock interviews with each other. I strongly recommend acting as an interviewer as well, because sometimes it's very difficult to self-assess how you're doing on an interview, or like what went wrong. And so sometimes if you see it through the lens of an interviewer, it's much easier to see how other people are struggling, right? And then you can sort of retroactively say, okay, am I doing the same mistakes that they're making, right? And so try to find some partner or someone to do mock interviews and like swap roles, basically. There's a website called Pramp. If you don't know anyone in person, you can find people virtually to pair you up so that you do these interviews. And there are some paid services as well, like Exponent, Interviewing.io, and me as well. I offer this type of service to students. And so that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for volunteering. If you want to get in touch with me, this QR code links to my LinkedIn, so you can connect with me. Make sure to connect and not just follow, so you can message me. If you have any doubts about anything, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And then there's also my website if you are interested in some of my services. I think we'll do a Q&A now. Okay. Yeah.
There's a Q&A session, so feel free to ask away.
Hi. So I do have friends that actually work at Google. And one of the things that they told me is the most important isn't really solving the questions. It's more about how you think. Mm-hmm. And they always say, think analytically. And when it comes to getting recognized by a potential employer, you gotta work on real life projects, or like projects with real world impact. Now, when it comes to thinking analytically, what exactly do you mean by that?
So thinking analytically, they probably mean, your problem solving skills in general. So can you take a big problem or a vague problem and decompose it into multiple steps? And each step you can then solve individually. And then once you put them all together, then you solve the problem. And then it's also about applying different concepts that you've learned in the past, or different algorithms or approaches of solving problems. How creative can you be to sort of solve questions that way? So maybe you saw a problem before that's very similar to the one you're seeing now. How can you take that knowledge and apply it to a new problem?
One more question, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Do you take technical skills over soft skills, or the contrary?
Over soft skills?
Yeah, as in like creative thinking, problem solving, leadership.
Yeah, there's no it's very hard to judge like creative skills. So I think for the most part, most companies really care about technical skills, but some soft skills like communication are very important. And at least at Google, they have like a behavioral interview as well. So they try to gauge some of those soft skills in that type of interview. But for the lead code, for the most part, is mostly about the technical side of things. There's lots of questions. Maybe.
I'm Zahra, and my question was kind of the same, but I might not be able to start university this year, so I'm not going to be able to show that I'm academically active in the field that I'm applying for an internship or job for. So, but I did some like projects by myself in the like IoT, SQL, and different stuff. But so like everyone sends an resume, but how do they stand out? Because it doesn't really show who they are until they go and like they talk in person. What I thought like a better approach would be is to go in person before even I send my resume. Like find some small companies and go in person and talk to them and like show how much I like to join them. But
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is the best way.
So I mean, when you mentioned that, I don't think people do that. So it is very unique. So I think it could potentially work. It's just you just have to get through security at that company, right? I don't think they're gonna just let you walk in and talk to people. So that might be the biggest hurdle there for you. But yeah, I think to stand out, just in general, it depends, as with anything. For me, it could be your project is unique, or it has some type of memorable approach to it. So something that maybe is not a to-do list app, right? Because everyone has that on their resume, and so try to build something that maybe it's kind of like memeable. Like I remember seeing someone created an app that would encourage them to go outside, and they had to take a picture of them touching grass. And I found that to be super funny. It's kind of simple and memorable, right? So something like that could work with some people. The other way is to have like an impactful project. So if you build something, try to get users. So for students, I mean, you could give the product for free to hope to get users, and then you can claim on your resume, okay, my app has this amount of users or this many downloads, right? So it's more impressive than some project that you just built because you just wanted to. And so trying to find ways to build something that's impactful, either for you or for someone else. And so building projects that sort of affect you or like you would use yourself, it's like a good way of getting like feedback on like how to approach or like how to build the project. And so I don't know, for example, for me, I wanted to, I don't know, write a personal finance app to track my expenses and my wife's expenses from her credit cards. Like I don't have access to her credit cards. And so I could build an app that, you know, asked both of us to upload, I don't know, our credit card statements, and then it would just centralize it somewhere so I could see it, right? And so I can build that. I can be the first user. I know what type of features I want to build into it. And then maybe other people might be interested in that. And so you can sort of market it outside. If you get any users, great. And then once you start getting, you know, people using your app, then you can ask them for feedback, like what kind of features do you want, and sort of build things like that. I think if you make even just $1, like you're way ahead of everyone else, because most people don't pay for services like that. And so yeah, try to find some unique approach, I feel. I think yeah, showing up at an office, I think it could be an interesting approach. If it works for you, let me know so I can tell my clients to do the same. But yeah, even for like networking, for example, you want to get referrals from different companies or from people that work at those companies. One thing that worked on me, like someone sent me a video, a personalized video of them saying why they wanted to speak to me. And it's like, if someone sends you a video, you're not gonna see it. Of course, you're gonna see it. Like I wanted to see what this guy wanted to say to me. Someone sent me a voice note. Also, it's like I'm seeing the voice note. It's like I cannot just ignore that. I have to play it and listen to it, right? And so different ways like that could work. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Diptanshu. This might be a bit unrelated, but do you recommend getting a master's?
Depends on your goal. What's your goal?
You get a job.
Maybe not. So it depends. So for example, when I was working at Google, I worked in a team that was very specialized. So they like people with PhDs that the research that they did was very applicable to their product. So for example, people that were doing research on auctions would have a much better time like getting into that specific team, or like people that took game theory or new things like that. So in some way it can help you specialize, but then it depends on the masters. If you're doing a course-based masters, I don't know how helpful that would be. If you're doing research that you really enjoy, that you don't mind going into, like you're interested in doing, I think it might work out. I think right now, people are applying for all the jobs that there are, and it's very hard to stand out. If you somehow are very specialized and there's a very specialized position, you might be a better fit and have better chances when everyone else just have like generic experiences. And so if you're doing the masters just for just to get a master's, I think maybe not. But if there's something that you're really passionate about, I don't know, some topic in machine learning, and you wanted to explore more, you like doing research, then I would encourage it. Yeah. But if it's just to add it to your resume, maybe not. It might be expensive, might take a long time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm just curious, like, what's your favorite programming language, and maybe which one you used the most while working on Google?
Yeah. My favorite is C++. I just have a long history of using C++. I used it a lot in programming contests while I was in university, and I was recruited at Google because I knew C++. The search ads backend is written in C++, so that sort of helped, and that's most of the coding that I did at Google was in C++. So Python, I don't have a lot of experience in. So for example, I was looking at the code. I found some things that looked funny, but wasn't quite sure if they would work. But to me, C++ is like my favorite language. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sebastian?
I was wondering if you could tell us about your possibly worst interview experience. How that went.
As an interviewee or interviewer?
As an interviewee.
As an interviewee. Oh, wow. Yeah, like I said, prior to Google, I did some interviews, but while I was at Google, there was only one time where I applied outside. There's one particular interview that caught my eye. I submitted my resume and my transcript. And this person looked at my transcript and he found like the class where I did the worst in. And it was some non-technical course. I think it was like intro to Greek civilization. And I had just recently taken it. So to be fair, I should have been prepared for questions there. So he asked me something about the Romans and I just didn't know. And so I'm like, I just was caught so off guard. And yeah, I failed that interview. And
sure,
something that that's just very memorable to me. Yeah.
Well, can you tell us about the Romans? Can you?
You caught me there. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Wonderful. Adam?
As an interviewer at Google, if you saw someone with a lot of certificates, I know Google has a lot of certificates they offer. If they had some of those, would you see, oh, I like that guy? Would you think that way?
Oh, certificates are tricky. Yeah. I don't put a lot of weight into them, but I'm not a recruiter. So I don't have a lot of context into what are the best certificates now. So from my perspective, for the resumes that I did see getting into like the final stages of hiring, I wouldn't see someone who did like lots of certificates. They may have one or two, but it's not like they overly focused on getting certified. So and it really also depends on the type of industry that you're going into. For example, I think network and security certifications might be more standard than, say, just generic backend software engineering. And so I think for cloud, I think some certifications are important to show that you have the knowledge. So there are some like niche areas where they're important, but for the types of roles that I was, looking at packets, it's not something that it's like, oh wow, this person did certifications. It was almost never about that. But it can be something to supplement or to demonstrate that you have some knowledge. So maybe more useful in like the team match phase. So say you want to work at Google Cloud and you have some, I don't know, Google Cloud certifications. So that might give you a leg up, but usually not something that hiring committee would care about. It would the person might have all the skills that they need, but then the team match phase is done by hiring managers, right? So I think I'm kind of indifferent about certifications. I would say maybe don't spend too much time on them, but depends on which one and like which area of work you're leaning into. So like networking, I think security maybe as well. That come to mind where those might pay off. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
So if we can just all give Alex a big round of applause. Awesome. We really appreciate you coming, Alex. It's been a wonderful time.